all of the research that I have seen about these things, like about the misinformation and so forth, really indicates that it's a very small proportion of the population that is spreading this misinformation. Actually, like, you think that it's everywhere, but I recently saw a talk that looked at it wasn't a huge data set. It was 16,000 Twitter users. But what was really nice about this data set and why it was a little smaller was that these people were they were actually verified real people. They were verified using voter registration rolls. And normally on Twitter data, you don't know if you've got a person or a bot or a company. I mean, a Twitter handle could be Ford, or a Twitter handle could be Ravi Kumareddy, and
right.
That's those are very different things. But these were real people, 16,000 people, and of those, I think 80% of the COVID fake news articles were spread by 16 people. That's one in 1,000. Yeah, like 0.1%. We're spreading 80% of the fake news information now, and it was still reaching more people. It was reaching something like 1% of the population. But so, like, that seems like a problem that makes it more tractable in a way. Some of these problems, because it's not as pervasive, or it's not like everybody like you might think it is.
So you just have to know which of these 16 people, or which of this really small cadre of people would have a high probability of saying or doing, quote unquote, the suboptimal thing, to set that off.
Maybe, yeah. I mean, that's an idea for sure. But the other problem, and I mean, this is like this is also something that we know a lot about. It goes back to this kind of VHS versus Betamax in a way. You end up with, when you take VHS versus Betamax and you put it into into kind of like a structured network in a way where people are not just paying attention to everybody, but people are paying attention only to certain people that they're connected to. Then instead of ending up with just everybody using VHS or everybody using Betamax, you can end up with these groups of people where some people are using VHS and other people are using Betamax, and they're separated out, right? Which is what we have in lots of cases, like with Macs versus PCs, or like why we have different electricity standards in Europe versus here. And that's not really like antagonism. It's not saying that, despite what Macs and PCs like do, again, joke about each other, it's not like they really, like, the people who are using them don't typically have true animosity towards the other side.
Right. You don't know you don't know PC people and Mac people. And trust me, I know some that almost gone to blows over the kernel. Do you know OS 10 as a Unix kernel? Did you know that? How do you not know?
Okay, yeah. I mean, some people take it a little seriously, but so we expect that to happen. We expect there to be differences, and like there to be these kind of seas of social areas where people have different beliefs. But I think what's problematic is, like, when what becomes the dominant belief in one area is something that's really detrimental to society, like behaviors that, for example, allow the spread of a deadly virus. And, the fact that came to be the dominant belief among a certain part of the network, like, from this like research on kind of like the viral unpredictability of what goes viral. I mean, in some ways, it's very unpredictable that would be what went viral in that part of the network, and it's in some ways, kind of some kind of randomly triggering events led that to happen, and it's tempting to point fingers, possibly accurately, at certain individuals who might have, promoted those beliefs. And if they promoted some other beliefs, then that whole population probably would have believed something else. Which is to say, like, really, that it's not something intrinsic. Like the whole, like, we don't want to wear masks, we don't want to get distance from people. That's not some intrinsic belief that population had. I don't think. Is my opinion. I don't think if you had gone back and asked them before the pandemic and before certain political figures or whatever had said, this is what your group is going to converge on.
Polarize to.
Yeah. If you had said,
Yeah.
you know, if there's a pandemic, would you be willing to wear a mask? They're not going to, they don't want to say like, no, man, masks suck. Like ahead of time. It's just, that's what happened to coalesce on. And I think this happens all the time. Like there's this great paper called, I think it's called Why Liberals Like Lattes. And, you know, there's tons of things like this that correlate with political beliefs. Like, for example, that liberal people are more likely to prefer like a fancy coffee drink, which probably has nothing to do with being liberal. You know, it's just that there's kind of these segregated populations and we influence each other.